On Sam Gatlin, are we live? Do you know? Hello, hello.
I think so.
All right.
I don't
Welcome
know.
everyone to CRL Chart Request Live. This is the show where you provide the requests and we provide the charts. That is Sam Gatlin. I'm Spencer Israel. Sam, are you ready? We have a few charts from the inbox. We'll go through those first, then we'll get to the chat. Should we dance?
Yeah, let's get to it.
Let's dance. Let's start with this first one from Hanson in the inbox. I always love the tickers I never heard of before. STRL Sterling Infrastructure. I'm assuming it's an infrastructure stock. This company, he's asking for a 3 month time frame is his uh, objective here. So STRL for 3 months. What say you, Mr. Sam?
Well, just from a very long-term structural perspective, this is a very interesting level. So you can see, let's change the colors here, Spencer.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier to see. But this is the Fibonacci extension levels from this first massive base back in 1994 to 2000 or to 1998. And we also have the fib extensions from this 2006 to 2015 base. And they're both coming in right here around 213 to 226. So from a long-term Fibonacci analysis perspective, this is a very, very interesting level right here, right now. And that is taking place as price is breaking out above last year's highs. So it's making new all-time highs and testing key long-term Fibonacci extension levels. So I like this a lot from that perspective. I'm not sure if 3 months is the right time frame to have with a vehicle like this. For me, I would think more quarters with something like this that's just in a long-term secular uptrend. So that's how I see it. But if you do indeed want to trade it with a 3 month time frame, then I would trade it above this high. So that's 206 and a half, let's call it. And if you're above there, I think 274, that is the first target there. I see no reason for it to not get there. This one looks great.
We're in the mid.
Look at that overbought momentum, Spencer. What do you think?
I mean, we're in a bit of no man's land right now, according to the Fibonacci. So, but buy it
Yeah.
on the weakness. And all right, what's the all-time high? We just hit an all-time high like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So that was 233 and a half. So yeah, you could also, I like buying this one on weakness back towards this 206 level, but you could also buy this one on strength above the VWAP anchored to that date. So you can see that's coming in right around, let's see, 220, let's call it.
Okay.
Interesting chart though. I,
I
I
like
don't
it.
look at Sterling infrastructure all that
No,
often.
no.
Six
Hey,
billion dollar engineering stock. I like it.
here's
I like it
another
a lot.
one. This was more obscure. This is from Jonathan. This is an OTC name. It's a Belgian financial company, AGESY, Belgian financials slash insurance slash real estate. That's all I know about them.
I love it so much, Spencer.
You love really this? The stock
Belgian
that
stocks, come on, man. Look at
the
this
stock the
base.
stock that has gone from 35 to 65 in a decade, something like that.
Yes, exactly. That is the one I'm referring to, Spencer.
Oh
Because
boy.
look at this chart. This,
Jonathan says it's got a 3.7% yield. All right, so
yeah,
that's
that's the
not
thing, Spencer. This is like an investor pattern right here.
yeah.
You know, this is a multi-decade base that's trying to climb out of. So that's not something you want to trade with like a 1 month time frame. That's something you want to sit in for an extended period of time and collect that 3% dividend yield.
Hmm.
In my mind, at least, this is not really a trading vehicle.
No. These types of companies are not trading vehicles.
Yeah, and you can see here, this is the AGESY relative to the S&P 500 financial sector, and it's at a key level of interest here. This is the 2012 pivot low that it's coiling right at. You can see it's been here for years now, so there's not really any relative strength here. I think, yeah, the play here is you're betting on this being a valid base resolution here, breaking above this 2021 peak. So if you're above that level, which we currently are not, important to note, 67 is that line in the sand. If we're above there, then this one's probably going to 87, 90, maybe higher than that. And you also get that 3% dividend yield. So it's interesting. This isn't for me. I'm more into the faster stocks, the space mobiles and stuff like that. But no, this is certainly interesting. And I appreciate whoever brought this one along. It's not often we look at a Belgian stock on Chart Request Live. So
it is not. No, it is not. Okay, let's go higher flying. Let's go from Mark Zerby in the chat. Let's go to Truepanion.
Yeah.
Which is this one's got some juice to it. So
Mr. Zerby's always bringing
we like the juice
charts.
We like the juice.
Yeah, and I also like the short interest with this one. I have it pulled up on my other screen here.
I'm sure. Let's see. Without knowing anything, I'm gonna guess the short interest for this one is 25%.
Spencer, that is very impressive. It's 27%. Can you guess the days to cover? That could be a little bit more challenging.
I don't really know what the volume is. Days to cover, 3.
14 days to cover.
Okay, wow.
One of the highest in the market. 14. And this, my friends, we were just looking at a Belgian insurance stock. This is a U.S. pet insurance stock. So it's a little bit of a different flavor of insurance than what we were just looking at. This one clearly more speculative, less certainty in their business model, as you can see from the high short interest and the extreme volatility. This one has gone from $18 all the way to $50, almost $60 this bull market. So about a 200% move for the TRUP. And Spencer, this one's just kind of a mess right now. This is a lot of speculative tech looks like this. It's just been stuck in the box for years. So there's not a whole lot to do here. In my opinion, the best trade here is buying it above the pivot highs from last year. So that's about, let's call it $58. I like Truepanion a lot more above 58, but if it's below there, I think it's just going to be more sideways for longer, and I don't really want to participate in that. So if you get that breakout, then I like it with a target of this 72 or 104 using these Fibonacci retracement levels. But yeah, I think this could be very interesting before long. But and also, Spencer, if you get that breakout above 58, I think it's really going to be off to the races here. We were mentioning that 14 days to cover ratio earlier. Holy cow! If this thing gets going, it's really going to go vertical.
I just want to say, I promise you that I did not look that up beforehand. I really
that was really impressive. You were 2% off.
I was 2 percentage points off. I was way off on the days to cover. But hey, 25, 27%, same thing. Okay, Judd in the chat is yelling. He's not requesting. He is yelling about Solana. So
let's look at Solana.
Let's bring up my Sol USD chart. What's going on here? I haven't looked at this one for a minute. It's been quiet.
It has been quiet, Spencer. That's a great observation. This is just, I think a weekly chart would probably be the best one to look at here, but here's the setup, Spencer. So this one was one of the hottest cryptos in the last bull market. This one went like 24x in, let's see, less than a year. It went 24x. This one was an absolute rocket ship higher in the last cycle. And it's been pretty amazing this cycle too, but for the last year, this one has made zero progress. 0.0 progress, just hanging out here in the middle of no man's land. So I think you could get involved above 166 or short it below 106, but There's nothing to do here in the middle of this range. I think the bigger trade here and the much more interesting one, in my opinion, is a breakout above this prior cycle's peak, which is 260, almost on the dot. So let's change that here, 260. And a breakout above 260, I think, would be very interesting. You could see 400 or 670 very soon. I think, and this one's proven itself in the past to be able to move with the best of them. And really, Spencer, I think this one, it wants Ethereum to outperform. And it's part of that whole alt season, if you will. We've heard about a potential alt season coming. Maybe Bitcoin dominance has peaked. Maybe this ETH BTC ratio has bottomed right at the 2020 lows. It would make a lot of sense, but today we're seeing the exact opposite. ETH BTC is getting crushed, resolving a multi-week range. So this is not very constructive for the alt season, and therefore it's not very constructive for the Solana chart. And I think you're just going to continue to see this one churn sideways.
That ETH outperformance was so quick.
Yeah.
It was like 2 weeks of total domination. And then
but you know what that was, Spencer? I think that very well could be, looking back at this in 6 months or something, this could be the initial momentum thrust for a new alt season, for a new extended period of time where Ethereum and the junkier cryptocurrencies are outperforming Bitcoin, which has not happened almost at all. This entire bull market has just been driven by Bitcoin dramatically outperforming almost everything in the crypto space.
As a crypto investor, I feel like we should all want the altcoins to outperform.
I think so, Spencer. Yeah, I think we need our Federal Reserve to print more money and get this party started.
Okay, here's a question. Billy wants to know how you like that Disney chart. Disney is, of course, in my long-term account. Sam, find me a mega cap stock that has more gaps on its chart than Disney.
It's hard to do, Spencer. This is one of the gappiest
mega cap of them all. Stock chart on the wall. Show me a gappier chart. You can't find one. This is the gappiest. How many times are we going to test 130 here? Is that 130 or 120?
Right? Man, 120. I don't know. It's going to take a lot. And it could be ready to go right now, Spencer. Here it is hanging out above this VWAP anchor to this 2021 peak. This does kind of look different than, look at how it broke above this VWAP in Q1 of 2024 and just immediately got slammed. But look at how long it's been hanging out above it now, Spencer. That's
what
character change.
2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yes, it is 2 weeks, but you've got to start somewhere. It hasn't done that in the past. Each time it's gotten above it, it's gotten absolutely crushed. Look at this, Spencer. It's clear as day exactly what's happening here. Sellers, the bag holders, were waiting for the price to test this VWAP. And then as soon as it happened, they unloaded their bags and the price fell. It almost fell in half. So, yeah, this has been a huge, huge headache. I don't know how you've held this stock for so long, Spencer. Truly don't.
I've held it.
Here.
I've held it. This is a pre-COVID thing for me. So, it's not. This is not like a. I wasn't buying the all-time highs above 200. Let's put it that way, right?
Sure. So. Sure. And how do you feel about this relative weakness, Spencer? Does this concern you at all? Hanging out at multi-decade lows relative to the S&P 500. Are you willing to take on this company-specific risk?
I think comparing something to the S&P 500 is fine. It's a good exercise, but just because you underperform the S&P, that's not the end all be all to me, right?
Shouldn't it be though? Because you can invest in the S&P 500 and not have company specific risk, and not worry about what Bob Iger is gonna eat for dinner tonight.
Yeah, no, that's true. But what this really means is it's underperforming uh, 9, 7, or 8 tech companies, right? So,
It's been pretty terrible, Spencer, but if there ever were a time and place for this one to quit sucking, I think this is it. Right here, right at this 2002 low relative to the S&P 500.
yeah,
So,
look, to be clear, this has been the biggest dog. It is the only dog actually in my portfolio, partly because every so often it's good to sell your dogs and harvest some tax losses. But this is the dog in mine. Everyone has one, and this is mine. So I don't look at it very often. That's kind of why the gaps thing jumped out to me, because I was like, what the hell? Why literally every quarter it's like it's gapping up or down on earnings report? It seems like it's kind of weird. But
so is this one of those legacy positions, Spencer? Are you going to pass this on to your
I would
son?
I would like to, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it had a really good decade, and now obviously it's done nothing for what, 6 or 7 years. So
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah,
see.
betting against Disney is not really something I want to do. Like, I think Disney's
Yeah,
going to be here for many, many, many more decades to come.
yeah, we'll see.
So,
All right, to the chat we go. Ethan is asking. Ethan, were you watching the morning show this morning? We talked all about XHB this
and the
morning on the
short
morning show.
interest, I brought along the short interest charts. They were
Oh boy.
incredible. If you missed the morning show, what are you doing with your life? It's gone
Yeah.
horribly wrong. Best morning show in finance.
Check it out on the channel or on our site, stockmarkettv.com. But yes, XHB, Sam.
That's what we
This
want.
is, that's what he's asking about,
All
XHB.
right, all right.
So
Yeah.
this is one that I have owned in the past. I don't at the moment, thank goodness for me, because I think it looks quite terrible. But I'm not the chartist here. You are. So what say you?
Yeah, Spencer, I think anybody with two eyes can say that this is a downtrend. You know, it's been making lower highs and lower lows for about half a year now, and it is now below former support, pretty decisively resolving this top. But, I haven't seen a whole lot of downside momentum. If I were a bear, I'd want to see this thing get absolutely blasted as it puts the finishing touches on this top. And this is what I'm talking about here. This is the top. So you had support here in April, support here in July, support here again a year later, and then you resolve the top. But look at how it's just been whipsawing back and forth around this level. You aren't really getting more oversold here, and you can see I could see it in the chart without even pulling up the 14-day RSI, but there's clearly a bullish momentum divergence shaping up here. It's not the cleanest, but it's there, and this reminds me a lot of the crude oil chart. It looks very similar, a very well-defined distribution pattern resolving lower, but it didn't decisively go. It didn't get super oversold. The bears didn't really win, and it was just kind of a stalemate at that level, and that's exactly what this looks like to me. And we all know what's happened with crude oil recently. It's scooping and scoring very aggressively back into the range, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the home builders do the same thing. But as an equity bull, it's very concerning to see one of the most pro-cyclical groups struggle this much. Semiconductors are another very pro-cyclical group in the market that I track very closely, and it had a very similar distribution pattern. It broke down, but the bears failed miserably, and it's scooping and soaring, trying to make new 52-week highs and ultimately new all-time highs in the SMH. So I think XHB is going to end up looking like semis, looking like crude oil, but we just need to see it. The bulls need to step up here. The stage is set for an epic rally, in my opinion.
With XHB here, you have a very obvious. If you want to buy it, you have a very obvious out right at that.
It's an amazing point, Spencer. Like, you want to buy this one, some news comes out and there's a God candle that gets it out of this range. And that is the candle I want to participate in. That will be,
right.
It's going to be one of those setups, like you know it when you see it. It's going to be very decisive. If the bulls come back here, there's going to be a very nice
Or
uptick.
if the bears. So like I was saying, very obvious out. It's in the mid 80s, right? It's that low right there, which also coincides to those prior highs from 2023 and 2021, right? So very obvious there. I think the worst case scenario is you end up like the last basically the last 2 months, right? You end up with that for like the rest of the year, right?
Right. And that's kind of where my head's at, Spencer, is
Yeah.
like I think all of the evidence is leading me to believe that the home builders are just going to churn sideways here and carve out some type of base, and then maybe, honestly, it could spend all of 2026 between this 80, 84, 85, and 100 level.
That's
Like,
no good.
I think it could very easily spend all of next year there and then eventually break out in 2027, rally in those pre-election and election years. Who knows though? I need to see it. But right
Dude,
now it's just range bound, nothing to do.
ranges
The
ranges
setup is
are
clear.
ranges are soul sucking. I mean, we were just talking about
Yeah,
Disney. We were just talking about Disney being in a very large range. Uh, ranges will suck your soul because every time you think it's going to break out and it doesn't, and it's just like, why do I own this thing? And then eventually you capitulate, and that's when that's when it breaks. And then what were you doing the whole time? So okay, let's do a couple more and then we'll hop out of here. What about BBAI? This one is for SQ Polk in the chat. Big Bear AI. Haven't looked at it for a while. I know it tends to go parabolic at times. I don't know what this company actually does. I don't actually care what they do.
they have $50 million in revenue, Spencer. If that means anything to you,
What's the
given it a
market?
$1.2 billion valuation.
That's
Pretty reasonable, right?
did,
No, think
so
of
they
this
have
as the exact
revenue.
same thing as like quantum computing.
Do they
It's
have
a
any?
very similar chart
Let's see if they have
structure.
any Do they have any earnings? No, they don't.
They have negative earnings, but
Revenues.
they
Okay.
make about 20 to $50 million a quarter in revenue.
With a float of, oh, that's not terrible, and a short float of, what is that, 30%? Okay, so it's heavily shorted, which makes me which we know makes us bullish, right?
For
So
sure.
I don't know.
And the structure here is really interesting, Spencer. So you have this multi-year downtrend line, which you decisively broke out of really earlier this year, late last year. And since then, you've just been consolidating sideways. And this setup looks extremely intriguing. I know that Breakout Multiplier has gotten involved in the BBAI. I know they're really into the volatility compression. And you can see clearly on the chart here, there's a lot of volatility compression going on here. This one has had some huge swings. This one's gone from 250% move in days, and then it fell 50% in a few days. Right here, it seems to be happy. It's just turning sideways. There's buyers and sellers are in equilibrium. So if this one breaks out, I think it's going to be very, very explosive. And this is exactly where that breakout's going to start, is this VWAP anchored to that February 13th peak earlier this year. So that comes in at 4 and a nickel right now. So if BBAI is above 4 and a nickel, I think you want to have a bullish bias
Well,
here.
it's almost there
Ultimately
right now.
targeting that 10.5 level, Spencer.
It's at 4 and a penny, so we'll call it even, right?
Right.
So
This one's really, really close to being actionable. And of course, it's going to be messy here. You want to get confirmation by closing above that 450 level. But I like defining risk above that 4 and a nickel. I think that is the clean and clear level to trade against here. And this one could double in literally just a few days. I'm not kidding about that. It could double in a few days.
You know what's cool is if you look at this one and you think, oh, I missed that move because it went from 4 to whatever 11, 10, and then I missed it. Well, it's done nothing for 3 months now, right? 3.5 months. So if it has shown it can make those moves, and if you don't want to chase it, now is your chance because you ain't chasing shit, right? Because nothing's happened yet. So if you're the kind of person that looks at charts and think, oh, how could I have known beforehand? Well, you can't, but the only way to buy a stock before it breaks out is to buy it before it breaks out. Right?
I think this kind of chart pattern screams short-dated call options to me. I don't really want to own a common stock position in Big Bear AI, but I'd be happy to own like call options that expire this Friday that could potentially go up 10x in a few days.
I would give it a little more room. I'd give it maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, right? Sure, exactly, Spencer. But that's the right mindset.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, all right. 2 weeks, 2 week call options.
Yeah,
Not the worst idea.
you can probably get
Uh,
them for a few pennies too.
you
This is a
probably
four
could.
dollar stock.
Yeah.
Very cheap options.
Dominic is new here, but he's loving it. Thanks, Dominic. If you have a request, drop it in chat. Let's do one more. Ethan's asking about John Deere. All right, we
Yeah.
started the show with a with an industrial, didn't we? Let's end the show with an industrial.
I love it, Spencer. We don't do that enough around here. Shout out industrial stocks. This is one of the biggest in the entire world.
Wait.
$138 billion.
Are home builders not industrials? They're not, right?
Yeah, that is a very controversial question, Spencer.
I always confuse it. I know that it's either industrials or it's discretionary. I can never remember which is which.
You know, technicians all have different answers for that, Spencer. I think they kind of look more like discretionary at times and they look more like industrials at other times. They do their thing. I think they're both is the answer. I guess it's one of those gray areas. But John Deere, this one is no question about it. This is an industrial stock, and it's a leader versus the S&P 500. It is a leader versus industrial stocks, and pretty much anything else you want to benchmark it to, it is a leader. Deere is an extraordinary company, $138 billion market cap, like I mentioned before. And I think they have a nice little dividend yield going on here. Yeah, 1.24. That is the sweet spot for a dividend. I love to see that.
You could do a lot worse than just buying the leaders of every industry group.
It's so true. Yeah.
Trying to see what happens there.
Yeah. So this one's, you have a nice high and tight coil here on the weekly chart. It's just coiling in the middle of a range. I think this one's likely to resolve higher, and I think it's likely to head towards 622, which is a key Fibonacci extension level. That is what I'm watching on the John Deere.
All right.
This one looks really, really nice. And I know Riley likes to talk about this one because they're doing like the whole autonomous tractors and stuff. I think they have some super valuable technology. Like I think they were like using it for something on the moon. I don't know, Spencer, but it sounds like they're doing real cool space and exploration
not
stuff.
Not to give Riley a hard time, but last week we're in a meeting and he brings up John Deere as if no one's heard of it before. I was like,
you're talking to the Kansas boy here.
We've all heard of this company.
Yeah. JC doesn't know what a tractor is though, so I think
he may not, but he knows what John Deere is. So anyway, all right. Hey, let's get out of here, guys. If you have questions and you want to get them in, you want to make sure we talk about them, email us. That's the best way to get your request into the show. The email address is questions@stockmarketmedia.com. We always go through the inbox questions first, and then we do the chat second. We'll be back on Monday, right? Next Monday?
Yeah.
That's the plan? Yeah, every Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern time, right here on the channel. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, chat. As always, thanks for watching. Drop us a like, and we'll see you next week.
Adios, everybody.